This morning we are going to talk about, oh, oops, wrong one. Um, this morning we're going to talk about why Herod, why Herod is important at Christmas. Why Herod is important at Christmas. Our kids, we were talking last night about the Christmas story and about the Herod figure, the different figures in the Christmas story. And when I asked the kids who the leader was, who the ruler was over the Jews, Elise said that it was Harold. And so we just started calling him Harold instead of Herod. So we're going to talk about Harold or Herod this morning. And I'm going to start with reading some scripture here. So I will pull this up just a moment. I have some scriptures for you. It's Matthew chapter 2, where we're going to go. Give me 1 second. Okay, so you guys see that? Everybody see it? Good. Okay, so Herod the Great, who was really not that great. Harold the Great. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet, and you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people, Israel." Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child. When you have found him, bring me word that I too may come and worship him." After listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshiped him. Then, then opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. Now, when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Rise, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt and remained there until the death of Harold. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation. Rachel, weeping for her children, she refused to be comforted because they are no more. But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, "Rise, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead." And he rose and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, so that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled. He would be called a Nazarene. Yeah, so when I was reading about that, I found a really just a brilliant picture on this that just kind of captured me. I'll share it with you here. You saw that in the last image. Hopefully you can see it now. Okay, but I think it sort of captures the moment there. We oftentimes think and focus on a Christmas story, just the shepherds and the angels and baby Jesus, and think about the mystery of the incarnation, but think also about just this terrible event of slaughter of children and how horrifying that must have been. And this image of the mother holding the child and in fear, just in a corner there, you can see the partially knocked out wall, people running down the steps in fear, moms and dads that are afraid of losing their child. I can't even imagine what that whole scene must have been like. But the whole story, I think, is incredibly fascinating when you think about a couple of different key pieces here. Fear, I think fear, control or power, and then just the difference between Jesus and Herod, the great leader Jesus and the leader Herod. So fear, power or control, and then Jesus. And those are going to be the themes that we really talk about this morning. Some of you, if you like Star Wars, you're familiar with this quote. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Yoda. And I think a lot of what we do, a lot of the poor choices that we make are motivated by fear. And I think it's a great thing to sort of pause and slow down with this morning. And as we think about Christmas, I think a lot of people right now are filled with incredible fear. I think that there are a lot of us that want power or control. You say like we don't want to release any sort of control. And so fear and control, or fear and power, seem to be some really important themes this Christmas. It's something we should really think about. And we almost want to look at Herod as a cautionary tale. Here's a man, leader of Israel at the time, leader of Jewish people. And he's afraid when he hears the word about this potential Messiah, somebody that could be a threat to his power or his leadership. Herod is, if you think about the word Herod the Great, was kind of the language that was used for him. This guy that's just great and powerful and big name, and his name's out. Having your name out there or having a reputation isn't always a good thing. I was talking to a friend the other day, and of course, there are famous names or products that are out there that we talked about hair products, right? And so he was talking about LA Looks and that crunchy hair that everybody had back in the day. It was popular West Coast to East Coast, baby, as you're rocking the LA Looks, doing the super crunchy hair all the way across the country. But now we talk about it, making fun of it. Like, oh yeah, remember when we all like used to rock the LA looks, baby. You could never put your hands through it. And then we got into the conversation about Nickelback. You know, like Nickelback made a lot of money. There's a lot of people went to Nickelback concerts, but now everybody likes to make fun of Nickelback. Herod the Great, big name, powerful. Everybody knew him, right? But now you look back at him and it's sort of tongue in cheek. You talk about Herod the Great, but he was a great monster. He was not somebody that you want to look up to. Why? Because he was motivated by power, by control, by fear. I mean, think about being afraid of a baby. I mean, if you're a ruler and you hear about a child that was born and you see that as a threat to your throne, I mean, you're talking decades before the kid would be in a place that he would possibly take your throne. Talk about the insecurity of potentially losing your power and control. That this guy was fueled by such great insecurity, such great fear that what he has could potentially be taken from him. Jesus was not an immediate threat to Herod, but Herod wanted to be the guy, right? Nobody wants to be replaced. It messes with your ego, with your insecurities. You feel insignificant or undervalued. A lot of you guys know, I mean, I think all of you know, I'm an Eagles fan, and Carson Wentz is being replaced today by Jalen Hurts. He's going to be on the bench for the first time in his 5-year career outside of being injured, which has happened quite a bit. But outside of the stadium, you've got a statue to his backup who won the Super Bowl after he got hurt. Now, talk about how you might feel when you were the guy and you led the team the whole way through the season to get in a place where you were MVP frontrunner. You're hoping that you can take them to the Super Bowl. Now you get hurt. Your backup wins the championship. First Super Bowl ever, wins the thing. And you had to ride the bench watching that thing. Now he gets benched because he's having a poor season. He gets benched. Now think about what that does to somebody internally. We all deal with it on different levels, whether it's work or you feel like you're replaced with a friendship or relationship or whatever it is. When you go from being the guy or being the girl, feeling like you're important or valued or significant or something, and then that's taken away from you, and all of a sudden there's this fear or even a fear of potentially having that taken from you. You want to grip for control. You want to grip for keeping that. You want to secure it. You don't want to lose it. You want to make sure that you continue to have your position of value. And here's Herod, right? His identity, his very identity is attached to his position, to his leadership, to his power, to his authority. And so anything that could potentially take that away was a threat to him, including a baby. Now, think with me for a minute. Is there another time in history where there was a slaughter of a bunch of babies, children? Anybody know? Put it in the chat. You can think of it. Is there another time? Think through scripture. Think through the Bible stories. Is there another time where a whole bunch of babies, infants, toddlers were killed? Passover. So you have the Moses story. Okay, so you have in the Moses story, Pharaoh, fueled by what? What's the word? Come on, baby. Drop it in the chat. What's the word? Fueled by fear. Pharaoh is fearful. Pharaoh is fearful as he looks at the Jewish people. And they said the women just kept having tons of children, and they were afraid that potentially their power as a nation could be overtaken, that the slaves could revolt, that they could take over. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to kill every single baby boy and throw them all into the river, into the Nile River, or whatever, kill them. And totally fueled by fear, insecurity, afraid of losing some sort of power as a nation. You got to ask yourself, what is your identity wrapped up in? What would you be afraid to lose? What is it that could potentially make you obsessive that you don't want to lose that? Could it be a job, status, parenting? That you find your identity 100% as a parent. Be money, be relationship. What is it that you oftentimes find your identity wrapped up in, that you want to control, that you don't want to lose, that you're so afraid of potentially losing it that you sort of dig your claws into, you don't want to let go of? Because this is Herod. His identity is wrapped up in power, position, authority, king. Like, this is who he is. And the idea of somebody else potentially taking him out, he just can't deal with that. It's intoxicating, right? To the point where, how could he even enjoy being king? You can't even enjoy being king if all of your thoughts in the back of your head are fear of losing it. You're not even enjoying it. Reminds me of this verse: there's no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. The one who fears has not been made mature, made perfect in love. Think about this year and all the things that create fear in us: fear of getting COVID, fear of isolation, fear of business survival, fear of money, fear of what's happening with our kids and social interaction. And I found myself after Elise's dance class or dance show yesterday. We had to go in the basement. We couldn't be in the room where she performed. We watched her on a screen. She was with 4 other girls, socially distanced. We were with one other family in this room in a little box where we could stand in. She performed. She was beautiful, performed like an angel. And after that performance, when we're walking out, I could really sense emotion welling up in me. That it was, I just felt sad for her, for us. Just the whole experience. You just want to see things the way they were. You want to see her dancing around with her friends. You want to see a room full of people. You hear her afterwards saying, when am I going to be able to perform and people hand me flowers and there's a whole crowd of people and all that kind of stuff. The kids miss it. So we have these fears that control us. Are we ever going to go back to normal or the way things were? Are we going to be okay? Are our kids going to be okay? Is our money going to be okay? Are we going to be sick? Are we going to die? Are friends going to die? All those types of things. Fear, which can so often lead us to make radical, rash, or terrible decisions. And then think about Herod. What did Herod do? When Herod was gripped with fear, Herod dug his claws in and he eliminated the competition. Jesus, on the other hand, what did Jesus do? He emptied himself. Jesus became limited. Jesus became needy and dependent. He had to be washed and raised. Jesus teaches us to let go of fear and power and instead be driven by love of others. He laid aside the perfection and the royalty and the beauty of heaven and became nothing, born in a stable. You think about Herod wanting to be visible and powerful and in control. And then you think about Jesus, who came and became virtually invisible amongst a group of people. How very, very different. Think about how 2 different people responded to Jesus. You've got Herod and the way that Herod responds, which is fear of losing control. But then you have someone else that I'd like to remind you of. Later on, when Jesus starts his ministry, you've got John the Baptist. And John the Baptist had this faithful group of followers that loved him and looked up to him and saw him as great. And he had a bunch of people, they were actually called disciples. So you have these disciples of John the Baptist. And John the Baptist had been teaching his people about this coming Messiah, and they followed him and they saw him as this great teacher, prophet. He was baptizing people. Jesus shows up, and John the Baptist goes, I'm done. That's it. Like everything that I've been telling you about has just arrived. There he is. I'm not even worthy to hold his sandals. And John the Baptist, rather than being gripped by fear, is gripped by love when he looks at Jesus. And when he looks at Jesus, everything that he felt value in was seen in Christ and not in himself. It turns into a he must increase, I must decrease. It's not about me, it's about him. And this fascination with Jesus, who Jesus, fascinatingly enough, came not to be served, but to serve. And so you have the true great one, not Herod the Great, Jesus the Great, who became nothing and emptied himself and lowered himself and humbled himself and ran to the bottom, not to the top. He was the opposite of Herod the Great. He was Jesus the weak, Jesus the despised, Jesus the hated, Jesus the persecuted, Jesus the killed, Jesus the dead and then resurrected. He became nothing so that he might win us and love us. He became rejected and despised, a man of sorrows that you would hide your face from. But he bore all of our sin and brokenness. My God, why have you forsaken me, so that we would never be forsaken? It's really amazing to think about. So you want to talk power? Herod thought he was powerful, but he was really deeply, deeply insecure. He talked a big game. I'm great. Money, possessions, military, bombs, whatever. They didn't have bombs back then, but you get it. Chariots, money, possessions, military, power. But then you have Jesus, the one who speaks planets, suns, solar systems into existence, laid it all aside. Instead of controlling people, loves people, doesn't force them to love him, but dies for them, lays aside his rights for the sake of love, enters a world of turmoil to transform hearts and minds, not change circumstances. In a really messed up world, a really messed up political system, Jesus wasn't in the Band-Aid business. He was in the heart transplant business. Sure, he could have transformed Jerusalem, but he was more interested in creating an entirely different kingdom, to be an entirely different king, to transform the hearts of the people, to change everyone and all of humanity, to take away the fear of death, the sting of death, the power of death over all of humanity for all of time, forever, so that we might find hope and joy in this humble Messiah who was born in a manger. It's amazing. So this year, as we think about Christmas, and many of us are gripped with fear, many of us feel control slipping away from us. Many of us are afraid. We just want to sort of own our way to victory. I think we need to think this Christmas about how we respond to Jesus, who gives us hope in the middle of all of this, who came not to kill his enemies, but to love his enemies. What does it look like to love people? What does it look like to not live in fear? What does it look like to care for those around us? What does it look like to have hope when it feels like there's nothing hopeful around us? What does it look like to sing in the middle of a jail cell like Paul? What does it look like to transform our neighborhoods and our cities and come alongside of people that are hurting and fearful and afraid and trying to make ends meet? What does it look like to support each other, love each other, serve each other like Jesus? What does it look like, instead of Herod, who wanted to be strong, if we become weak or lowly and serve other people from underneath, not from up above? What does it look like to sacrifice for other people instead of trying to preserve our lives? What does it look like to be hidden instead of visible? So I'll ask you if you could maybe put in the chat some tangible thoughts about what is a step or two that you might want to take to love and serve other people like Jesus, not like Herod. Where do you feel convicted? What's one thing that you feel called to do? That's one thing. And as you're putting something in the chat here, I'd like to leave you with an image of clinging on to and hanging on to Jesus. That when John the Baptist sees Jesus, he's just like, everything that I've built, all of my followers, my reputation, everything doesn't even matter because I've met Jesus. I've come into contact with Jesus. Same experience with the shepherds. It's like, okay, if I lose my job, whatever. You see these people that come into contact with Jesus, the disciples who met Jesus, left their nets, followed him. In the same way, I think it's time for us to look at Jesus and go, that's all that matters. If I have him, if he's my king, if he's my hope, if he's my joy, he changes the way I see this world. My identity isn't found in my power, or job, or security, or money, or what other people think of me, or any of that. If I have Jesus, I have everything, and nothing can separate me from Jesus. Elise has gotten really into Christmas spirit this year. And so Jackie got her a Christmas tree for her bedroom. It's a little white one in her bedroom that has little ornaments on it, and also ornaments and all that kind of stuff on her little tree. And she plugs it in and lights up at night. Well, the other night, Elise grabbed her Christmas tree in the middle of her night. In the middle of the night, she was sleepwalking, grabbed the Christmas tree, took it to bed with her, and was cuddling asleep in her bed with her Christmas tree. She just loves that thing. And I got to tell you, it's really great for us to think about Jesus as the one that we're so excited about, we're so attached to, we're so obsessed with, we're so caught up in, that the same way Elise grabs a Christmas tree and takes it to bed with her in the middle of the night, that we would grab onto, latch on to Jesus and find this great hope and joy in the midst of whatever we're dealing with, that we are more than conquerors through Jesus. Okay, so Tamara says, my girls and I have been baking cookies all weekend to deliver to our neighbors. We're also going to go to the Wise today and hand our gift cards to random people just to bring our community a little joy. It's awesome. Good stuff. Delivering cookies. Tell me you got a picture of that. Jackie, did you get a picture? Did you get a picture of Elise with her? Nah, she didn't get it. Sorry, we should have got it. We could stage one and pretend like it was the real thing. It was awesome. A great moment. Yeah. Any other potential next steps for you guys as you think about having your identity wrapped up in Jesus, not power or security? Okay. Yeah. Mom's making it a little political. Hey, Mom. Good to see you. Mom, hey, we have to celebrate that Mom just got over COVID. So that's really good news. She went through a little rough time there. Thank God that he was taking care of her. Keep our faith in Jesus for sure and helping others in need. Yeah, small goal. Spend half as much time in prayer as I do stressing about work, money. Yeah, definitely. Imagine if we did that. Think about our tendency to want to. Think about our tendency to want to call people and talk about issues instead of pray and talk to God. Very important that we go to Jesus.